Sally Field really despised him more than anyone. Sally Field was born Sally Margaret Field on November 6, 1946, in Pasadena, California. Field's rise to stardom started out in humble beginnings. Her mother, Margaret Field, was an actress, and her stepfather, Jock Mahoney, was an actor and a stuntman. These early household connections to Hollywood exposed her to the world of entertainment, yet her rise was far from smooth sailing. Sally's teenage years were characterized by emotional struggles and the upsets of growing up in a mixed family. She used to refer to herself as shy and insecure, but her own exceptional talent and personality would soon prevail. Upon graduation at Birmingham High School in Van, New York, she got her first major television break, which would shape the beginning of her career. Sally Field was a name that became synonymous with every household in 1965 when she played the lead role of Gidget, a lighthearted sitcom about a free-spirited teenage surfer. Although the show only survived for one season, it highlighted her sunny energy and slapstick timing, and viewers instantly fell in love with her. Soon, she played another much-loved role as Sister Bertriel in The Flying Nun, 1967 to 1970, who could literally fly. Although the series was a success, Field later confessed that she had difficulty being TYP cast as an adorable, bubbly girl, looking instead for more meaningful and substantial roles. This time in her life was a transitional period, a time when she struggled to redefine herself as an actress beyond the sitcom cuteness. Hell-bent on breaking out of her screen persona, Field started taking acting classes with the revered Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio. The experience revolutionized her work and emboldened her to seek out richer, more emotionally complex roles. Her efforts were rewarded when she gave a powerhouse performance in the 1976 television movie Sybil, a young woman suffering from dissociative identity disorder. The part called for unusually broad emotional range, and Field's work was universally praised, winning her an Emmy Award and forever changing the direction of her career. For the first time, Hollywood came to regard Sally Field no longer as a light TV actress, but as a bona fide dramatic artist. Her success in Sybil led to film roles that would feature her full range. She appeared in Norma Rae, a strong drama about a Southern textile mill worker who becomes an activist in the Union, in 1979. The part struck a chord with audiences and critics because Field infused the role with authenticity, intensity, and passion. Her performance won her the Academy Award for Best Actress, and her sincere acceptance speech, "You like me, you really like me," was one of the most oft-quoted in Oscar history, reflecting both her relief and her elation at being at long last acknowledged for her skills. Throughout the 1980s, Field stayed bright with a varied range of roles. She also co-starred with Burt Reynolds, whom she had a romantic relationship with as well, in Smokey and the Bandit, 1977, and The End, 1978. Their relationship eventually dissolved, but it greatly benefited her life both personally and professionally, because both actors became one of Hollywood's greatest couples to talk about. Field also delivered memorable performances in Places in the Heart, 1984, which earned her a second Academy Award, and Steel Magnolia, 1989, a film that demonstrated her strength in combining vulnerability as a mother dealing with love and loss. Throughout the decades to come, Sally Field would continue to demonstrate her lasting power as an actress. She made her return to the big screen in Forrest Gump, 1994, playing the devoted mother of Tom Hanks, a role that became legendary in its own right. She then continued working on television with ease once more, finding rave reviews for her role in ER and Brothers and Sisters, where she portrayed the matriarch of a complicated contemporary family, for which she won another Emmy. Even in her 70s, Field remained committed to playing challenging roles, such as her Broadway stint in The Glass Menagerie and her role as Mary Todd Lincoln in Steven Spielberg's Lincoln, 2012, which earned her another Oscar nomination. Aside from her success in front of the camera, Sally Field has also been a vocal supporter of women's rights, LGBTQ+ rights, and mental health issues. Her vulnerability regarding her self-esteem issues and her honest memoir in Pieces, 2018, provided a close-up view of her private life. Her victories, breakups, and strength. The memoir unveiled the resilience behind her vulnerability, and readers empathized with her for being such a brave and honest soul. Sally Field's private life, as her famous career, has been marked with moments of love, collaboration, and inner development that attest to her strength and independence as a woman and an artist. Her first marriage was to Stephen Craig, whom she married in 1968 when she was still coming out from behind the cloak of early TV stardom in Gig and The Flying Nun. The marriage was concurrent with a transitional time in her life, both personally and professionally, as she sought to reinvent herself beyond the romanticized roles that had initially gained her fame. Although Field and Craig legally divorced in 1975, they had remained apart since 1973, a time during which Field started seeking more adult and challenging acting assignments that would soon remake her career. The couple had two sons, Peter Craig, who was born in 1969, and Eli Craig, who was born in 1972. Both of her sons have gone on to experience successful careers in Hollywood as artists, following in their mother's artistic footprints. Peter went on to become a successful novelist and screenwriter, working on blockbuster movies like The Town, 2010, and Top Gun Maverick, 2022, and Eli as both an actor and director, gaining recognition for his dark comedy Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, 2010. Field has frequently voiced her own pride in her sons, stressing the warmth of their family and the way that motherhood. Following the breakdown of her marriage to Craig, Field became involved in one of the most publicized relationships of her life with Hollywood megastar Burt Reynolds. Their love affair started in 1976 and continued through 1980, years that were both passionate and passionately followed. The two met while working on the action comedy Smokey Key and the Bandit, 1977, a box office hit that made them one of the most popular on-screen and off-screen couples of the late 1970s. Their undeniable rapport yielded three more duets, Smokey Key and the Bandit 2, 1980, The End, 1978, and Hooper, 1978. Off-screen, however, their relationship was as charged and complicated as it was loving. Field went on to describe Reynolds as a person she cared about, but also one who had difficulty with vulnerability and control, which ended up loosening their bond. Although they broke up in 1980, they had an on and off relationship for another couple of years before eventually splitting up for good in 1982. Years later, in interviews, both Field and Reynolds still looked back on their relationship with residual affection, but also with unfinished emotional business. Reynolds famously described Field as the love of my life in his 2015 memoir, while Field, though affectionate, acknowledged in her own memoir in Pieces, 2018, that their relationship had been emotionally complicated and sometimes challenging. Sally Field got married again in 1984 to film producer Alan Griezmann. Their union arrived when Field was already solidified as being among Hollywood's most admired actresses, having twice been honored with an Academy Award for Norma Rae, 1979, and Places in the Heart, 1984. With Griezmann, Field bore her third son, Sam, in 1987, bringing another shining light to her family. Field has frequently told, with fondness and affection, about Sam, who went on to become an author and public crusader, and about the close, loving nature of her family life. Even as a professional success, Field never sacrificed motherhood, managing her career and raising her children, a balancing act she's explained both as demanding and richly satisfying. However, as with many relationships in Hollywood, her marriage to Griezmann eventually came to an end, and the couple divorced in 1994 after a decade together. Over the years, many stories have emerged from Hollywood film sets about actors clashing behind the scenes, but few rival the tension that reportedly existed between Sally Field and Tommy Lee Jones. Although both are admired, Oscar-winning actresses renowned for their exceptional talent and professionalism, their professional relationship while filming Backroads, 1981, was notoriously acrimonious. Sally Field, never one to conceal her true feelings regarding her Hollywood experience, was not reluctant to air her opinions about Jones. "I have worked with difficult men before," she once said, "but Tommy was something else altogether. He was a nightmare to work with. I really despised him more than anyone I've ever worked with. Her words, spoken candidly as well as wearily, exposed the deep frustration and emotional drain that the experience exerted upon her. Field and Jones were both at the peak of their careers when Backroads was filmed. Sally Field had already established her dramatic credentials with critically acclaimed roles in Norma Rae, 1979, and Smokey Key in The Bandit, 1977. And Tommy Lee Jones was establishing himself as a force to be reckoned with, known for intensity, toughness, and an almost intimidating gravity toward his work. Their on-screen chemistry was perhaps raw and convincing, but based on a large degree of actual hostility off-screen. Field eventually confessed that much of the tension in their scenes was not acting. It was genuine. Every look, every line between us was charged, she explained. I wasn't faking being angry with him. I was. They disagreed about the very basics of how to act. Field was famous for her emotional availability and openness to working with others, whereas Jones was notoriously brooding, deliberate, and frequently scornful of others' ideas. He was known to be argumentative and domineering on set, and to Field, who respected mutual respect and empathy, his demeanor was unacceptable. He could be condescending, she said. He treated me as though I didn't know what I was doing, and I had already won an Academy Award. It was offensive. Several members of the crew afterwards reported the mood on the set as strained and draining, with hours of silence and underlying hostility between the two leads. For all they disliked each other, they were given by the film to share many close and emotionally intense scenes. The irony was that their explosive interactions charged their on-screen chemistry. They observed the realism and bite in their performance without knowing that it was primarily a portrayal of real conflict. Field later admitted that she at times redirected her true frustration into the character. I used every ounce of irritation I felt toward Tommy to fuel my performance,